Oh, I was like, what in the world is this transcript? I was like, I definitely didn't say that, but fair enough. All right, so hopefully everyone can see anything, or hopefully everyone can see everything. This is going to be a bit of a long presentation, as you can probably tell. So I'm not going to take, I'm not, I'm going to start a little bit early so I can kind of get into the beginning of it and not take too much time, not end too late. So we're going to get into it and get started. And like I said, as always, if you have any questions, let me open up this tab right here. Feel free to leave a question in the Q&A section. It's on the right-hand side. You can kind of click the Q&A section and just leave a question, and I'll check it out and I'll answer it. I might save it towards the end. It kind of just depends on the question, depends on how long it might take me to answer it, but that is a perfect place for it. So as you can see from the presentation right here, from the title, this is going to be a little bit of a different presentation. Probably not something, I know a lot of people talk about red pill and they talk about all that stuff, but this is going to be a little bit different. This one is the top takeaways that I have as a former pickup artist and how you can use it to improve your dating life. And I say that a little bit kind of as a clever title, because I know pickup artist kind of has a certain connotation. There's a certain expectation people have when they think about a pickup artist, a certain image that comes to mind. And I don't think I'd fall under that image, so to speak. But I'm going to get into what I kind of define as sort of a pickup artist, what pickup is, and how it can help your life as a whole, but specifically your dating life. And the reason why I want to do this is because partially, this might actually just be my next slide. So let me move this. Yeah, so partially, I keep seeing online, I go through Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all that stuff, and I keep seeing people talk about how dating is so tough, how the dynamics between men and women are so skewed and so unfavorable, and how things aren't working out for men. And whenever I see comments like that, or whenever I see videos kind of like that, even red pill stuff, I think about it, and I think to myself, if more people understood pickup, if more people did pick up, and not in a cringy way, not in like a schemy, manipulative way, but in just a general way, I think a lot more people, especially dudes, specifically dudes, would be much better off. And if the dudes are good, then I think by extension, the women will also be better off. And so that's why I wanted to kind of do this video, because I think there's a certain idea of what pickup is. And I think because it has a certain negative kind of connotation or image in people's head, they stay away from it. But I think pickup is the better version than red pill. And I think if you follow a lot of the general practices of pickup, your life in general will just be better off with women especially, but just better off as a whole. And I'm going to explain why in this presentation. So like I said, it's kind of the top takeaways I had as a pickup artist. I'm going to talk heavily about things between women, because I think as a man too, chances are if you're in this group, if you're in the round table, if you're watching this, you're probably a heterosexual man. You probably want to go out and date women. And I tend to find that there's a lot of things that dudes do and don't do that really fucks them up. So these are just my experiences. These are my takes on what I think is beneficial and what will help you as you're watching this. So why am I sharing this? If you're unfamiliar with me and my background and why I'm even bothering to talk about this, did pick up for several years, kind of in college, mainly got into it just because I was so bad at talking to people in general, but especially talking to girls. And pickup was that thing that I stumbled on that helped me with that. If you're familiar with Neil Strauss's The Game, fantastic book, by the way, highly recommend it. The side tangent, I think people misunderstand the point of the book. If you read through the whole book, I'm going to kind of spoil it a little bit. While it is a book about pickup and kind of the dynamics of interacting with women, the ending is about how if you get too consumed by it, you kind of fuck yourself up. And I think people just read the tactics and they don't read the ending, and they don't understand that if you kind of get deep into that hole, you kind of really screw yourself over. So read the book. It's pretty good. I'm going to try to get kind of an e-version of it in the roundtable. I'll make a note of that and get an e-version of it so you can read it without having to pay for it. If you want to get a hard copy, get one. I'm sure by now it's pretty cheap. You can use websites like Thrift Books or something to grab it for a discounted price, but highly recommend it. So back to the story, was doing pickup for a bit in college and a little bit after college, had good success with some of the tactics and the skills and things that it taught. And I think one of the main things that pickup was good for is it just makes you a more likable person when you do some of the things correctly. If you're not manipulative and if you're not like sleazy and just a dirtbag about it, I think in general it makes you a more likable person. So that's why I recommend it, because I think a lot of times I see like red pill dudes and they get too deep into the women bashing and they kind of screw themselves over because they become unlikable by some dudes, but also by a lot of women, of course, by extension. I think with pickup, if you do it correctly, if you understand some of the principles correctly, you don't really get that dislikability. And sorry, my screen just kind of like messed up. Yeah, one of the things too is some of the things from pickup, oddly enough, even though it's such an old, it's fairly old, I don't hear many people bring it up. Like I don't hear many people talk about it. Even like in red pill stuff, they talk about some of the things, but they don't talk about all of the things. And I think if you understand all the things, it all goes together. It all makes more sense when done together. So I'll be sharing that in this kind of video as well. I mentioned this already, but red pill space gets a lot of crucial things wrong about interactions with women. I think a lot of it just becomes blame on women, and it doesn't help understand why, not just women, but men and women, why things are done, why we do what we do, and the purpose it serves. And I think once you understand that why and get a little bit more context, you're much better off. And yeah, and I think too, one reason why I'm sharing this, of course, just so you can have better interactions with women. I think that's a given. You don't want to go through life having shitty interactions with women. But even when I did pick up and when you see a lot of dudes do pick up, the main reason why people do it, I think initially people think it's to like just sleep with a bunch of girls. Usually what it ends up being about is just trying to get a good quality relationship, usually with one girl. If you want to try the whole polyamory or polygamy thing, whatever, do you? But I tend to find that a lot of dudes just want to find a good quality girlfriend. And I think in an era like now where finding a good quality girl in general is more difficult, all the stuff matters that much more. So, all right. So, what is pickup? Because I feel like it's necessary to like talk about it and define it for the sake of context. Like if I just say pickup, you might have your own image of what it is that comes to mind. I want to share what I would personally consider pickup, just so you have more context on everything else that I'm going to say to you as this presentation goes on or as this video goes on. So as you can see, I got this dude over here. This is a mystery. If you're not familiar with them, you've probably may have heard of him at least, if you're familiar at least with the idea of pickup. I know he had a reality TV show like years ago on VH1. What was it called? I can't remember what it was called. I think it was like just a pickup artist or something like that. So I think when people think of pickup, this is what they think of, like wearing all this crazy clothing, probably doing all these like crazy tricks or these lines, all that stuff. That could be part of it, in my opinion. That's part of it, but that's not really what defines it. You don't have to do this to do pickup. There's reasons why people do that, but you don't have to do that. You can, I think there's other ways to kind of do it in a more natural way, in a more low-key way that works just as well. So my definition for it, the strategies or tactics used to improve your chances of conversing with women. And by extension, usually dudes do it to have sex. But I think this main part right here is what you should really be focusing on, just how to have better conversations and to have better interactions with women, basically be more likable to women. Which, by the way, if you look at some statistics on men versus women, a lot of women find most men unlikable or just unattractive. So even doing some of these things will make you stand out far more compared to most dudes. Misconceptions of pickup, that it's a magic formula. It's not a magic formula. A lot of times I think people assume that if you just do something from pickup, it automatically works no matter what. That's not the case. It's to improve your chances of having a good quality interaction. It doesn't mean that every interaction you have will always be perfect no matter what under every circumstance. It's not what it is. 100% guaranteed. No, it's not 100% guaranteed. Even if you look at some red pill stuff, like I think on Fresh and Fit, they talk about this. Myron will say that the top quality dudes who have like insanely good game probably have about a 10% close rate. That's the reality of it. You're not going to have like an insanely high close rate just because that's the nature of humans. For whatever reason, you might interact with a girl, say, for example, do everything correctly, and she might just be having a bad day. There's nothing you can do about that. That's outside of your control. It doesn't have much to do with you at all. But because she has a bad day, maybe her mom died, maybe her father yelled at her, maybe she just broke up with a boyfriend. Who knows? Maybe her dog got hit by a bus. Who knows what it is? But because she had that thing happen to her, you're not going to succeed. That's just the way it is. At least not today. You might succeed in a few months, maybe in a year or two, but you won't succeed today. And I put this dude, Mr. X, here. It's funny. Like a month or two ago, Ty Lopez, he kind of started doing his podcast tour. If you're familiar with Ty Lopez, he's like the super popular entrepreneur that did a bunch of YouTube ads like years ago. And he started doing his podcast tour, and he was talking about pickup. I actually like listening to his pickup talks because he gets into like the science of it and like the books that he starts quoting. It's interesting to listen to. And he brings up now this dude named Mr. X. And he says Mr. X was like the super handsome, like Romanian and like Hispanic dude. And Ty would say that he's like the best pickup dude that he ever met. Like one of the best dudes with women ever. I think he said he was like 5'10", which proves that you don't have to be super tall to be great with women. And he was saying this dude would crush anybody, any pickup artist, any guy that thinks he has game, he would crush all of them. And he said that he asked Mr. X, what is your success rate with women? Because he's so good. Like he was saying that Mr. X was so good that he would survive from his ability to sleep with women. Like that's how good he was. His ability to like talk to women, sleep with them, whatever, is what let him survive, because the women would take him in and he'd live with them and do all that stuff. And so the guy, Mr. X, was saying he has a 50% success rate, only 50%. And I say only, even though it's high, but this is just to kind of demonstrate that you're not going to have a perfect success rate with this. So other misconception, doesn't work at all. I think a lot of times you hear some of the things that pickup artists do, and it sounds like weird or it sounds like cringy as I kind of listed here. And because it sounds so weird or cringy or just so outlandish, people just don't think it works. There are some things that are a bit weird. There are some things that are a bit cringy, and there are some things that are a bit extreme or excessive. But a lot of the things that gets taught definitely does work, and it's consistent, and there's actually reasons why it works, which is why I think it's so interesting to kind of understand it. All right, so some of the lessons I learned. Like I said, pickup is great initially for understanding social dynamics better. One of these things I kind of learned back when I was doing the whole pickup thing, for me, and this is just for me, other dudes might disagree, but this is just the case for me, you eventually just get bored if your entire goal is just to kind of go out and try to like hook up with girls. Like it's predictable, and it just gets too consistent, and it's annoying. It becomes more of like a chore than it is interesting. I see, I think it was like Andrew Tate, and he was saying that it's almost like the idea of being thirsty. Like if you're in a desert and you have no water, then the idea of water means a lot to you. But if you're not in a location where there's like water everywhere, then water doesn't mean much. And I'm not trying to say that to sound like arrogant or whatever, but because I'm not saying that I was nearly that good. But the point that I'm making is that if you do something consistently enough, it loses its appeal. Hopefully that makes sense. Like it loses its appeal if you do it too much. And so that's kind of where I was with this. You know, you can only go out to a bar or club so many times, have the exact same interactions, do the exact same thing on repeat before it starts getting extremely boring. And it became boring and predictable. So that's kind of why I stopped really doing it and caring about it. But I do think that men and women should learn the essentials of pickup, to not to be manipulative and not to just like hook up with random people endlessly, but to just understand the opposite sex much better. That's just my personal opinion on this. Even like I said, I've said many times before, I think girls should learn pickup too. Learn the way that guys do pickup so they can defend against it, but also learn a female version of pickup so they can better understand why men are motivated to do A, B, and C, what prompts them to do it, how they can kind of maneuver around it and use that to their advantage. Again, not in a manipulative way or like a dark way, but in a way that just gets them what they want, hopefully for both parties. Now, one of the things about pickup that I thought was interesting is a while back, some friends of mine were doing a book club. And I think the first book they started out with was The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And as I'm sitting there listening to the laws of power, and I had read the book before, but it didn't really dawn on me until they were like talking about the laws and I was kind of reviewing it and going over it myself. Most of the laws of power are the exact same things that you'll learn in pickup. It's the exact same thing. In the book, The 48 Laws of Power, the difference is that it's presented just for general society, just general interactions. And in pickup, it's presented solely for the sake of women. But it's the same general concepts, which I thought was just interesting. And this is why I think it's so kind of, it's such a good thing to learn, because really when it comes down to it, people make pick up to be something that you do as a guy to get girls, but in reality, it's just you just being a better, more socially calibrated individual. Like the same things you can do in pickup for women technically do apply to men too, but you're just not using it, when interacting with men. You're using it to interact with women. So I highly recommend this book, but I also want to just kind of draw that parallel. And I have a slide where I'm going to show just a few of the laws of power, and I'm going to kind of talk about what you would do in pickup. That's basically the exact same. So some examples. Law 4, always say less than necessary. Law 5, so much depends on your reputation, guard it with your life. Law 8, make other people come to you, use bait if necessary. Law 10, avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. These are just 4 laws, but all 4 of these laws apply to pickup. It's all the same thing. Like they all apply. And I'll give you an example of each of them. I have some slides where I'll go deeper into them because it's more of a coincidence that I had made the slide and then I looked back and realized that this was a slide I added kind of towards the end of this presentation. So it's some of these will be referenced in more detail, but I'm just going to kind of go over these really quick. Like Law 4, say less than necessary. A lot of dudes, when they go on dates or when they talk to women, they say too much. They try to validate themselves too much to women, and it almost becomes a turnoff because there's no mystery. There's just like you putting all your cards on the table. So saying less is sometimes saying more. It's almost like, imagine if you're a really rich dude, and I have friends who have a lot of money. They try to brag about their money to women. And again, some of these I'm going to talk more in more detail, but I'm just giving you a kind of quick version, which is why I'm going fast. They'll try to brag about their money and say, oh, I have these cars and I have this and I have these houses or whatever. You're better off just letting her find out about these things than you telling these things to her. And this is true with life in general. You're better off just letting people find things out about you and letting it be a mystery than you being braggy about it. Because if you're braggy about it, it sounds arrogant. It's a turnoff for people in general, men and women, but especially for women. Let them find things out, and that's much better. Law 5, so much depends on reputation. Reputation is big, in my personal opinion, with girls. Girls talk to each other all the time, and they are the ones that almost choose for each other. Like if you're a dude and it's almost like if you're a dude and you go out to a bar or club and you hit on a girl, if she has friends with her and the friends don't like you, they will just pull her away from you. Even if she liked you, even if the girl that you're hitting on liked you, her friends ultimately make her decisions. So your reputation matters a lot, especially when interacting with women. It matters in general. Like I said, these all apply to everything in pickup kind of applies to life in general, but it applies in a slightly different way when you're interacting with women. So reputation matters tremendously with girls. You do not want to make girls angry. You don't want to be unlikable towards women because it's not a good position to be in. I think it's Shakespeare. He said a quote, something along the lines of, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. It's funny. It sounds brutal, but it's true. You do not want to piss women off because collectively they will make your life much more difficult than it needs to be. Law 8, make other people come to you. Use bait as necessary. I don't think I have a slide in here about this, but this law in particular, make other people come to you, switch people with women. It's much better to just be an attractive dude than to try to go out of your way to attract women. Does that make sense? Like if you're a dude that just has women come to you because say you're like Dan Bilzerian, you have status or you have a certain lifestyle, it's better to have people come to you, to have women come to you, than for you to just be endlessly chasing women. It just it's better for your life. It's easier for you. And hopefully you can kind of extrapolate that point and understand why it would be more beneficial to have them come to you than have you come to them. Use bait if necessary. Pretty much market yourself more effectively. Use what you can to make yourself look appealing. You see some dudes on Tinder, and again, this is not a slide. This is me kind of going on a mini tangent, but hopefully it's valuable. You see dudes on Tinder, they might flex their lifestyle. They might flex a nice car. They might wear suits. They might wear nice clothing. They're in good shape. That's bait. That's just bait. It's something that makes women look at you more and see you as a higher quality dude compared to every other guy. It's bait. Use bait when necessary. Law 10, avoid the unhappy and unlucky. Completely true. You want to be happy and you want to be the lucky guy. You want to be a winner when you're interacting with women because it increases the chances that they will be more attracted to you. So, like I said, all these are true. Read the 48 Laws of Power. It's completely true, but it's just for society in general. It's also true when interacting with women. So I know I went on a bit of a tangent, but I wanted to make that point clear. And real quick, while I'm here, does anyone have any questions or anything? Let me check over here. Cool. Okay, are we all good so far? All right, sounds good. Let me go back to this. Take a sip of coffee. Now, when I did pickup, I say this to people, and I feel like deep down they probably get like this like feeling like, oh, he did pickup. Oh, that's kind of weird. I did what I consider to be a much less cringy and extreme version of it. I didn't do any like the extreme peacocking. I didn't wear the crazy hats. I didn't do any pickup lines. I didn't do any of that stuff. I'm going to tell you about what I did and what worked for me and what I think you can implement into your life without being cringy, without being creepy, without being excessive, just slight tweaks that I think will help you. And then, yeah, one more thing. These are in no particular order. Some of it I tried to make a little bit sequential so it just makes more sense, but don't take these in any particular order. These can all just be their own independent slides. So, first thing, start with your style. How you look determines how others perceive you. Think about the halo effect. And if you're not familiar with the halo effect, basically what it is as humans, we prescribe higher quality traits to people based on the way they look. So, for example, if you're an attractive man or woman, people automatically give you higher quality traits. They might think you're smarter. They might think you're more competent. They might think you make more money. Are any of those things necessarily true? No. But it's just a bias that we have as humans. It's the halo effect. So people will just think that you're good or better because you look good. So it pays to look good. It pays to be more attractive. Does that make sense? And this is why style is so important because it's a first impression. It's you saying a lot about yourself without saying anything at all. I'm sure you've experienced this yourself. If you were in a room, I remember in college, actually, this is a story that just came to mind. When I was in college, during the job fair, people would wear the suit, they have their resume, they go to the job fair, they try to apply for jobs, whatever. I remember some of my friends, they'd wear a suit, and these are dudes that never wore suits. And if the suit looked good, if it was tailored well and they looked good in the suit, they'd show up and they'd start talking to you. And you kind of get this weird like feeling of like they got higher status, even though they just went to a job fair, which is something everyone is doing. If they're talking to you and they're wearing a suit and you're not, you almost feel like, I don't know, like they're slightly above you, like they're doing something that you're not. And they almost look better. And you start to like prescribe these better attributes to them by default. I'm sure you've experienced this yourself. Like, I'm sure you've been out and you've seen a dude in a suit, and you've at least glanced and wondered, who is that guy? I wonder what he does. I wonder what car he drives. You might be thinking this like super quick, but I'm sure you've experienced that. And you've thought this about other people when they dress nice. So you could do the exact same thing. You just dress better, you have better style, and people will perceive you much better. Now, I used to have this thing called Shy Guy Game. And basically what Shy Guy Game is you use your style and you don't directly approach women, but you do think you have traits about yourself that make you more approachable. And it's called Shy Guy Game because it's you not having to really do much of anything to get an interaction. The girl does things to get your attention, and that makes the interactions much easier. So that's just kind of a name I called it, but it's a lot of dudes. I say this because a lot of dudes are shy. They don't want to approach. I totally get it. It's scary is a strong word, but it's a bit scary. This is a way to get over that, or at least is a way to kind of get around that. I think that's a better way of putting it. Now, starting with your style, being groomed is the basics. Like right now, I'm kind of like, I let my hair grow out a little bit. I'm going to shave after this. So I'm not the most well groomed, but you want to have a trimmed beard. You want to have a trimmed mustache. You don't want to have like a bunch of scruff or a bunch of hair everywhere. You don't want the neck beard like I have right now. You want to have your hair cut, or at least cut down so it looks neat. You want to be well groomed. Teeth should be brushed so it's at least somewhat white. You don't have to have like veneers and have like perfectly white teeth, but you want to be groomed. You want to have clothes that fit you. My thing is always a t-shirt or a button-up almost always looks good on almost every dude. You almost cannot go wrong with a basic t-shirt or button-up. And when I say button-up, I mean kind of like this dude in the picture. He has like this denim button-up. That's what I mean. Something like that. Or if you have something with like style, if it fits well, that works well. When I say style, I mean like with patterns. That works well. But as you can see, like I'm in this picture. It's not the best picture ever because I'm being a little bit silly. But t-shirt, boom. You see this guy behind me? T-shirt. That's it. And he's like, you don't even have to be like super jacked. You don't have to be ripped. You don't have to be anything like that. You just have to be in decent. I personally think if you're overweight and you're not in shape, start there because that's a part of how people perceive you by your physique. Start there. But once you get past that point, or even if you're not at that point, still just have a nice, basic, simple outfit. A nice t-shirt, some jeans that fit, nothing too baggy, but nothing too tight. Jeans that fit, boots or shoes. I like the shoes are great for a lot of dudes, especially if you're shorter. I think boots are fantastic because you can wear boots pretty much all year round, and boots automatically give you a height increase. So it's automatically something that you can do to instantly look taller. And again, just instantly boost your attractiveness without much effort. And this one's a big one. A necklace. I didn't add this too, but a necklace or like a watch and accessories, I think, is a hack. That's like a hack to getting more people to talk to you. I'm not wearing it right now, oddly enough. I usually always wear it, but you can see in the picture, I always have a jade necklace. I've gotten so many people to approach me and just say things about that necklace. The people will initiate conversation just based on the accessories you're wearing. You have a nice watch. If you don't wear a watch, you might not have experienced this, but I always wear a watch, except ironically, today is like the one day I'm not wearing a watch, but usually I'm wearing a watch like all the time. And so many people have come up and said like, "Oh dude, where'd you get that watch from? I like your watch." And I don't even think I have this as a slide. This is something I've noticed. If you're wearing a watch and a girl's trying to flirt with you, girls, from what I learned, are super subtle. They're not overt at all, but they try to do like some things to hint that they're flirting. One way is by complimenting your watch. So if a girl says like, "What time is it?" or "You have a nice watch," just assume that's her flirting with you. Because in my experience, she is. And then get a belt that matches the color of your shoes. It sounds small, and it is kind of small. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's strange. Girls notice stuff like that. Girls notice if you have like nice shoes, if your shoes are like clean, if your belt matches your shoes. If you go on Instagram, I'm sure you can see a bunch of videos where girls are like, "Oh, this guy looked cute, but his belt didn't match his shoes, so I didn't want to talk to him." Like, it sounds ridiculous, but trust me, girls do that. That's how they judge based on like the smallest, dumbest things. So it's something that you can easily tweak without much time, without much effort. It doesn't require a lot of money, but it'll give you a lot more points especially compared to most dudes. And like I said, it sounds simple, but most dudes have no fashion sense. and like in general don't take much effort. They don't put much effort into their grooming or how they look. So when you put even a little bit of effort, you'll stand out far more significantly. So um I don't think it's out yet, but I'm gonna have like a style guide in the roundtable to kind of go into more detail on what you can wear, different outfits. And eventually I'm gonna do a presentation on formal wear like suits and more casual wear like jeans and a t-shirt. In my opinion, real quick, one of the best outfits I've discovered, and it's a super simple, basic outfit. It's so cheap. You don't need much money. You don't need much time. It's one of the best outfits I've ever worn, and I've gotten so many compliments from this outfit. A black or white t-shirt, blue jeans or black jeans, but blue is always a good fit. Blue is always a good option, and boots. That's it. Boots or some nice shoes. And if you really want to like double, get some extra points, like I said, a watch, some necklaces, or one necklace, a watch, and some bracelets. And a necklace, a watch, and bracelets you can find literally at Walmart or Target for like $20. Walmart literally sells like a big, like a pack of like a nice watch and like bracelets, and you can get all of those for like literally less than $20. And then a necklace you can just get on Amazon for not that much. I think I got this necklace on Amazon for like $15. So really not that much money at all. All right. So I forgot to take this out, but yeah, this is funny. So next slide, eye contact. It's funny because like eye contact in itself is a form of communication. Like I don't want to get too deep into it with like when they study animals and how animals kind of interpret eye contact, but eye contact in itself is a form of communication. And I put here, you don't need like super piercing eye contact, but the ability to look at someone for more than like a few seconds will show a little bit of confidence. And again, it sounds so basic and it sounds so simple, but it's funny. Like when you watch other dudes, I like looking at like reality TV shows and like dating shows. It's funny when you watch other people interact with like girls, and even if they think they're like super cool, when you watch them, the way they do stuff is just so funny. So my belief on this, looking too long will look creepy, but not looking enough shows shows low confidence. And the reason why I'm laughing is because I kind of messed up the slide a little bit by putting this guy before, but if you get the chance, I don't have any videos because it's kind of a presentation and I don't know if I can play a video. I'm using Google Meet, so I don't know if I can play a video while doing Google Meet, but look up both of these dudes. I do not know how to pronounce this guy on the left. I think he's from Stranger Things. I literally just found a video with him yesterday and I put him in at the last minute because both of these dudes, I think, are good examples of eye contact. The dude on the left, Dacker Montgomery. There's a video of him. I've seen it like a bunch of times, but it popped up yesterday. And this dude has like crazy good eye contact. Like I mean, he's also an attractive dude, so that certainly helps by a lot. But he has crazy good eye contact, and he'll just kind of look. I think he does it with the dudes too, but he'll just look at someone with so much intent, and it's not like a creepy stare, but he stares long enough where you feel like he's listening. He's an example of good eye contact if you want to see what good eye contact looks like. And this guy, I'm not roasting him. He seems like a really cool guy, but I was watching the other day this show called Love at First Kiss, and it was funny watching it because this dude on there, his name is Josh. He has what I would consider creepy eye contact because he just kind of like stares and he doesn't change his eye shape at all. He doesn't look away. He just looks at you super intensely. I don't know when this records. I don't know if you'll be able to see my face, but like I'm just staring at the camera right now, and it's so creepy to watch. So I can only imagine if you're there in real life how it looks. But if you get a chance, it's hard. Like the reason why I brought these two up is because it's hard for me to communicate what good or bad eye contact is verbally. You have to kind of just see it and just pick out when it feels creepy and when it feels like natural or I guess alluring. But those two are good examples of both ends of the spectrum, and they're both kind of extreme ends of the spectrum, but I highly recommend you checking them out. Next thing, take note of tonality. I put this one in here because I've seen this happen with like friends of mine, and we'll go out and say they talk to a girl and they say something. I have a slide in here that says it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But this is a part of that how you say it is like the tone you're using to present something. And I think it's one of those things where if you don't think about it, it's not that noticeable. But once you hear it, it makes a lot more sense. I've seen dudes like say stuff to girls, and because they say it in a weird way, it gets misinterpreted, and then they become unlikable, or it just ruins the conversation. And it's not the thing they said; it's the way they said it. And it's hard for me to describe. It's like really difficult to describe this concept, but I kind of put these here, and I'm going to kind of give like a little demonstration to get an idea of what I mean by this. But there's kind of three tonalities I've learned that exist in general when humans are interacting face to face. There's seeking rapport, there's neutral rapport, and there's breaking rapport. And just kind of an example of what these sound like. Seeking rapport, think about when you're kind of like at a store or whatever, and you're talking to a cashier, or if you've been in retail, maybe you've talked like this before, kind of subconsciously, like you're saying these things subconsciously. You're not choosing to put your voice this way. You just feel like you should put your voice this way. And so that's seeking rapport. Kind of think about like a cashier or something. They're having like an upward inflection of their voice to get you interested. So an example of this is like, imagine you're a cashier, someone walks to the store. Hi, welcome to Quickie Mart. How are you doing today? Like your voice just kind of goes up. Does that make sense? Like your tone goes from here and then it starts to, how are you doing today? It starts to like just angle up. So your voice almost gets like higher. And that's seeking rapport. It's usually when someone is lower status or wants to at least come off as lower status. And I say wants to come off because sometimes you can do this intentionally to appear a certain way if it's beneficial to you. Like sometimes you're talking to people and you don't want to come off as like overpowering. So you might want to use the seeking rapport tonality to be like, hey, I'm not trying to like come off as too aggressive. I'm trying to come off as below you for whatever reason. Maybe it's someone you're trying to appeal to. And that's, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on that, but I just want to make that point clear. Seeking rapport is kind of like when you're lower status, like someone like a cashier, or you're trying to, you know, you're helping someone out, but they're not doing something necessarily for you. That's seeking rapport. Then there's neutral rapport. And this is kind of the way you talk with your friends or your family. It's kind of the way I'm talking now. It's a bit more monotone. It's a bit more straightforward. It's not really that many long-term inflections. I'm not talking down to you, but I'm also not trying to raise my voice like this so I can get your attention. I'm just kind of talking normally. It's just neutral rapport. And think about this next time you interact with your friends or family. The way you talk to them is usually neutral rapport. And then you have breaking rapport. And this is something that someone who's higher status might say to someone who's lower status. So maybe your boss might talk to you like this, or maybe a superior talks to you like this. Or maybe you've just met people who are just complete dickheads and they talk to you like this because they think they're better than you. This is that breaking rapport. And it's when you kind of start here and you end up down here. Hey, Sally, go get me some food. Hey, go take out the trash. You start here and you kind of end down here. Hopefully those nuances make sense. And so from what I found, when you're kind of in general, I say this, like if you're trying to actively talk to a girl more in a flirty way, you use neutral and you use breaking, a combination of the two. If you're just talking with someone that's a friend, maybe do seeking rapport or neutral rapport. But you kind of want to be using neutral rapport or breaking rapport tonality in general, because the tone you use is a form of communication in itself. Because it, like when you're talking to someone, it's a form of you suggesting where you, I know this sounds kind of weird, and it's something that most people don't really think about, but it almost demonstrates where you are in a social hierarchy. It's like I said, when you talk to people as a customer in a store, you probably, if you're like a cashier, you're probably using upward tonality because you're trying to sound polite. But imagine that same situation. You can say, hi, welcome to 7-Eleven. That sounds friendly. Hey, welcome to 7-Eleven. It's like, okay, yeah, it's not the most polite tone, but fair enough. Well, you know, it is what it is. Some people might receive it well, some people might not receive it well. But imagine you go, like you're a cashier and you say, welcome to 7-Eleven. People might be like, the fuck, this dude's hella rude. It's the same words, just said in a different way, which makes the way people interpret it much different. So tonality is pretty important. It's very important. And I've seen so many guys, and I've been guilty of this myself. You say something in a certain way, and it makes you come off negatively. And I think that, and just real quick, the reason why you don't want to do the seeking rapport tonality is because it makes you sound submissive and it makes you sound supplicative by default. Like it makes you sound almost like a child when talking to a girl. And I think that's how easily dudes get put into the friend zone, because you're not talking to her as someone that wants to like hook up with her or date her or anything like that. Or you're just talking to her like a friend, like a brother, almost like a little brother, not even like a big brother, like a little brother. It's like, hey, Sarah, do you want to go to the store today? And she's like, yeah, sure. Go buy me some stuff. You don't want to do that. You want to be more in the position of, hey, Sarah, let's go to the store. Hopefully those make sense and the nuance is there. All right. Next thing, more playful. Hopefully, by the way, is everyone kind of getting this right now? Let me know if there's any questions. Let me check. Give me a thumbs up if you guys totally understand everything that I'm saying so far. Cool. All right. Getting back to it. So, more playful, less logical. I think, and I've been super guilty of this myself. I think so many dudes take too many things too seriously. Like so many interactions with dudes. It's one of those things too. Like when you don't think about it, you don't spot it. But then once you hear about it, you notice it all the time. It's weird how it is. I personally found that when a lot of girls say stuff in general, they don't always, and I'm sure you understand this as a guy, they don't always mean what they say. Sometimes like they'll say stuff, but there's another way you could interpret what they're saying. And sometimes the way they say things, it's kind of hard to describe. Basically, they don't always mean what they say. And I think the issue is that a lot of times guys assume that everything a girl says is meant to be interpreted as it's being said. And so that it kind of creates like a weird divide in communication. I think if you kind of stop taking everything so logically and stop taking everything so directly, you can play around with the meaning of things. And that's what makes conversations more interesting. That's what makes conversations more appealing. And I say this because I've been guilty of this myself. I think I'm naturally more of like a left brain, logical type of dude. And I think a lot of guys are a lot more left brain. Definitely met some guys that are a lot more right brain by default, but I think most dudes are probably a little bit more left brain. It's kind of what I call it. And they'll talk to a girl and they'll start giving like facts and they'll try to use too much logic. I'm not saying you can never use logic. I'm not saying you can never use facts. I'm just saying they start out that way. And it becomes super unappealing because it's not a playful conversation. It's not an interesting or engaging conversation. You're kind of just talking at her rather than talking with her, which I think is really what you want to be doing if you try to go more right brain, more emotional, is talking with somebody. I'll give it actually a quick example. And I don't know if this is gonna sound as interesting or hopefully this makes sense, this example. I have a lot of friends who are engineers, and engineers are some of the most left brain people ever. They take everything far too seriously and far too literally. And I think it makes it difficult to have like playful conversations with them because if you say something, they feel the need to run it through their like logical brain of mathematics and science and pretty much tell you if you're correct or incorrect, which is not playful. It's annoying. So I remember one time I was talking to my buddy and we were watching like some anime about like, I think it was like about time travel, and the guy put something in this microwave and he called it like a particle accelerator and he time traveled with it. Makes no sense. And that's the point. That's what makes it interesting and funny. And so we were joking. I put like like a cup of water or something in the microwave and I was like, oh, look at the particle accelerator. And my friend had felt the need to say, well, that's actually not how particle accelerators work. Particle accelerators do A, B, and C. And it's like, yes, we understand this. You don't have to explain the science behind a particle accelerator, but it's a joke. Like, don't take it so literally. Don't take it so logically. That's an extreme example, but I think a lot of dudes do that, where they take something that is not meant to be taken so literally or so logically, and they make it that way. They make it literal or they make it logical, and that sucks the fun out of a conversation. So it's one of those things where you have to kind of see it, and you kind of have to learn how to do it. Like, it requires practice. At least for me, it required practice, and like I had to actually like go out of my way to try to not take things too literally. But some of the tips I would recommend: take time and try to misinterpret things intentionally. Like, one I put down here, I put in quotations, cold is a mindset. And I say this because sometimes, we'll be outside and people say, man, it's cold. And I say, no, it's not. It's hot outside. Cold is a mindset. Is it logical? No, it doesn't make any real sense. But it's playful. It's me. It's taking something that's obvious, like the cold, and deviating extremely far away from it just for the sake of curiosity or just for the sake of being different or for the sake of misinterpreting something. Does that make sense? Another thing, I like to do this all the time, and this worked a lot when I was actively doing like pickup. Give misleading answers overtly. So, for example, actually, this is funny. This is one I do a lot. Sometimes people say, you meet a girl. So, what do? You say, I take care of my people. What does that mean? It doesn't really mean anything. Like, you could come up with a logical way to explain what that sentence means, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's not a really real response. If someone says, what is your job? And you say, I take care of my people, or you say, like, I do stuff. I do big things. I do big things in all kind of big ways. It's a dumb answer. It doesn't make any sense, but it's not supposed to make any sense. It's just you being playful. It's you misinterpreting something or you giving an answer that is the opposite of what most people would give. And you can do this in a lot of ways. Another kind of example that just popped in my head, even something basic when you meet people. Hi, how are you? Terrible. Awful. It's been a depressing day. It's been a miserable day. I'm this close to offing myself. It sounds so ridiculous and it sounds so far-fetched and so different from what most people would answer. But because it's so different, because it's so strange, that's where the humor is. So something like that, I think, it's one of the things you have to kind of practice doing. But I trust me, when you start giving sentences like that, when you start saying things like that, I guarantee most of your interactions with girls are going to go far better. You're going to stand out way more than most dudes. Most girls will say, like, what do you do to men? And they'll say, like, oh, well, I'm an engineer at this company. Yeah. I'm an engineer at this company. Oh, I do this. I do law. I'm a doctor. It's like, this is a boring answer. Give a funny answer. Give an answer that's interesting or different. You don't have to give a straightforward answer. You don't have to be logical all the time. So, and here's an example. Again, I can't play videos, sadly. I wish I could. But initially, I put kind of in the last slide, as you can see, Kong's turtle story and kind of the background to that. When I was doing pickup, when I first tried to get into it, there was this channel called Simple Pickup on YouTube. And I looked at, like, I binged their videos. And I would, like, watch their videos and go out and practice whatever was in the video. And I remember this one video with this dude Kong. He was like this Asian dude that was like one of the main two people that did Simple Pickup. There was one video where he's like trying to hit on this girl. I remember he was saying that he was just trying to hit on her for the sake of the video, but he was like exhausted and he couldn't like think straight because he was so tired. And he goes up to her. He says like, "Oh, can I get your number?" Or I think he said something like, "Hey, how are you? Yeah, I'm Kong. I thought you were cute. Can I get your number?" And she says like, "No." And then he ends up going on this huge tangent about turtles. How he got to turtles, who knows? But he started talking about turtles. And it was so random. It didn't make any sense. It had nothing to do with what they were talking about prior. But it was so strange and so funny that at the end of it, she ended up giving him her number. So I couldn't find that video, but I did find another one where he does something similar. Actually, I didn't even notice the title. I just saw it. I clicked on it because I thought the thumbnail was similar to the turtle one. But I guess the title speaks for itself. Never run out of things to say with girls. And I didn't watch the full video, but based on where these quotes are from, like the first like 1 or 2 minutes of him actually talking to the girl. But I'm assuming the point that he was making in his video is that you don't have to think so much. You can just let your brain say the first thing that comes to mind and then kind of let it connect as the conversation goes, because girls don't always converse logically. Sometimes they just like say things. So if you get a chance, by the way, the reason why I clipped it like this is so you can like go find the video and watch it, because it's a good video. Like I've seen parts of it and the parts that I saw were good. But I put these quotes down because I thought these were just funny. The girl says to him, "How many people do you do this to?" Because he walks up to her and just starts, I think the first thing he says, like, "Before we separate, I'm going to get your phone number." And she thought, obviously he was hitting on her, but she thought it was like a pickup line. And she says, like, "How many people do you do this to?" Now, the normal logical response that most dudes will give is, "No, I don't do this at all. I never do this," because they don't want to seem creepy or cringy or whatever. So, of course, the better thing to do, and this is what he does, is the exact opposite. And he says, "Millions. Now give me your number." Because it's such an outlandish answer. I thought it was actually funny. It's such a good answer. "Millions. Give me your number now." And I remember she was like, what the fuck? Like, Okay. And I remember at one point, this is I thought it was a funny quote too. It was such a I cut it down because he went on this whole like monologue, and I think he said she's like, so you don't even know me. Why do you want to get my number so bad? And his response was, you're like an animal trapped inside a cage waiting to be let loose. I'm gonna turn the key. I'm shorting this, by the way. He said more. I'm gonna turn the key to the cage and you're gonna go out and eat people and suck their blood. I don't know what kind of crazy shit you're into. And so she gives him the number, long story short. But these are just some examples of you just saying things that don't have to make logical sense. You can just say things, and it's better to just say things than to try to be super logical. Will it miss sometimes? Yes, but it's again better than being logical. I think logical is boring. Sometimes it's necessary, but a lot of times it's boring. Don't be boring. Don't be logical. Next thing, nice and respectful. This, you would think this is common sense, but it's not common sense, especially nowadays. I've seen so many dudes, by the way, if you try to be like nice and respectful to girls, they'll think you're simping. They'll be like, "Oh, what a simp for being nice and for being respectful and for not insulting her all the time." I have a slide right after this that's going to explain more about why this is a good idea, but you're better off being likable, which will require you to be nice in general, than being a complete dick or an asshole and being hated. Because, like I said, your reputation is important. And I have a slide about reputation, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Reputation is important. And if you aren't nice, you'll damage your reputation. And you think it'll only hurt your reputation with one girl. It'll actually hurt your reputation with probably many girls because she probably has friends, especially if you live somewhere. She probably has friends that live in the area that you just don't know about. You'll meet one of her friends and she'll be like, "Hey, I met this guy at the bar the other day." And she'll show it to her friends, and one of her friends might just happen to be a girl you were a dick to. And she'll say, "I met that guy like a year ago. He's a piece of shit. Don't talk to him." And she'll never talk to you again. And you won't know why. But that'll be the reason why, because you were a dick to her and rumors about you spread. It's better to be liked than disliked, especially with girls. I don't know if I included I don't want to I'm going to continue the slides. I thought I had a story in here, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So, again, I brought up reputation. This is why you want to be likable. In my experience, girls will talk about a dude's character far more than men do about a woman's character. And so basically what that means is that if you meet a girl, in my experience, maybe you're different as a guy, what I tend to find is that a lot of dudes might talk about if she's attractive, if she's cool, maybe if she has good vibes, stuff like that. Rarely will dudes sit there and talk extensively about her character, at least not initially. Maybe when they're going to date, like long term, they might. But initially, I tend to find most dudes are talking about more of like the physical attributes of a girl. Is she hot? Her hair, whatever, stuff like that. And then maybe as you meet her longer, you might start to find positive qualities like she dresses well, she's nice, she's sweet. But initially, it's probably usually about the looks. I don't think that's the case with women. I think a lot of women, when they meet a dude, they might say if he's attractive and stuff like that too, but they also talk about the qualities of the guy as well. Did he smell bad? Does he have good hair? Does he have good style? Does he seem like he's got a good future? Stuff like that. They're really talking about the dude himself. And this is why reputation is important, because if you start off with a bad reputation, or if you start to have a negative reputation, then the last impression that a lot of girls will have on you is the negative stuff. And because they talk about the qualities of the dude, they'll bring up all the negative stuff about you. You can be a perfectly fine guy, but if you're a dick, if you're mean, if you're disrespectful all the time, they're going to bring up the fact that you're disrespectful and mean. And sure, there's probably some crazy girls out there who like that, but I tend to find most girls who are at least mentally stable, they're going to be like, no, fuck that guy. I don't want to talk to that guy. He's just strange. He's mean. He's rude. I heard he was mean to Stacy. I don't really want to be a part of this if he's mean to Stacy. And then it spreads. Because like I said, girls know each other. You can meet one girl. She might know like 10 other girls that you've never met. And then you're out at a bar and you meet her. She posts you on Instagram or whatever. You share a story. And her one friend that you met a year ago that you were mean to reaches back out to her and says, don't talk to this guy. He's a piece of shit. I already talked earlier about your ability to win or lose is contingent on her friends almost more than her. I've seen that happen a lot, by the way, where a dude will go up, and I've had this happen to me a lot, where you go up, you meet a girl, And if you're not cool with the friends will pull her away and make you just lose out on the girl, even if she was into you. And it's just funny how that happens. Like, I've had so many female friends, their friends will sit there and be like, no, Johnny's a piece of shit. You shouldn't date Johnny. And she'll just never talk to Johnny again. But she might be like, well, Johnny is cute. Johnny is sweet. Johnny is nice. She won't talk to him just because her friends basically disqualified that guy on her behalf. So again, reputation is super important. I put here as an example. This is something I've seen a lot. I've been guilty of it. And I've seen so many dudes do this. Sometimes if you're at a bar, you might see a girl, like say, for example, you see a group of girls, like 3 or 4 or 5 girls. One girl's attractive and you want to talk to that one girl. I've seen dudes, I've done this, but I've seen this a lot. You go up to a girl, you only talk to the one girl that you find attractive and you ignore the rest of her friends. And I think that's a bad move to make, because if you ignore the rest of her friends, they start to feel negative towards not getting any attention and probably just having a bad interaction with you because you're just ignoring them. You're just kind of isolating them from this conversation, from any potential fun or whatever. I'm not saying this will always happen, but I've seen this happen a lot. And so eventually what they do is if they want to go to a different bar, maybe they're not having fun, maybe they're not getting enough attention, maybe no guy's hitting on them, or maybe the vibe of the bar itself or club just isn't what they want, they'll try to pull the girl away. And usually, I'm not saying all the time, but most of the time, I found that the girl will go with the group. And usually in that situation, you'll probably just lose the girl because the friends have dictated what she's going to do. So my thing is always be nice to all of the girls. You can give one girl more attention if you're into her more, and you can maybe make it clear that you're interested in her, but be nice to all the girls. Give them all attention. You know, just don't be a dick to all of them. Be polite, be respectful, be nice. And one, I don't think I have a slide in here about this, but I do want to point in, I do want to add this. There's this idea that being nice is bad. Like people say, oh, you don't want to be Mr. Nice Guy. I think there's a difference between being nice, and by nice, I mean respectful, versus being supplicative, which is pretty much just being like a bitch. Like there's nice and there's overly nice. Overly nice is when you just do things for girls all the time when you're getting nothing in exchange just because you think it'll lead to something. That's sleazy. That's not nice. That's sleazy. Nice could be, you know, you have your own boundaries, you have your own rules, but you're willing to do things just because it's a good thing to do. You can be nice to men, you can be nice to women. I'm trying to think of a very specific thing. Like, for example, you know, if a girl needs help getting groceries and every once in a while you do it, that's nice. That's fine. You know, you can be cool and do that. But being overly nice is always buying gifts for girls, always taking her out whenever she needs it, always, you know, buying things for her all the time, even when she doesn't even ask you to do it. That's overly nice. That's you being sleazy because you're trying to do things with the hope that you're building like brownie points with her. So that way you can get something from her eventually, which is probably like getting laid. That's sleazy. That's not the way to go about it. Being nice is just you do things because you're being kind. And I think the way you differentiate this, if you wouldn't do it for a guy, then don't do it for a girl. That's the way I see it. Like if I wouldn't take my buddy out to go get groceries if he needed a lift, then don't do it for girls. If you would do it for your guy friends, then sure, also do it for a girl. No harm in that. And don't do it to the excess. I think most dudes understand what I mean by that. Real quick, I have a story here. It's from a bachelorette party that we went to. Me and a buddy of mine, we were in, if you're familiar with Northern Virginia, a city called Leesburg in Northern Virginia. We were in Northern Virginia and we were at this, we didn't go to a bachelorette party. We were just at the bar and we saw these girls having a bachelorette party and we wanted to talk to them. It was like 7 girls. And we went up, started talking to them, and pretty much had a good time with all of them, actually, except one girl. We didn't really talk to her that much. I'll be honest, we just didn't want to talk to her because she wasn't that attractive. I know that sounds mean, but it's the truth. We didn't talk to her much. And as time went on, you could kind of feel like she was trying to butt in and like stop the conversations. And her friends were all having like fun times with us. I have like videos of it still on my phone. Or in my like my Instagram. If you check like my vlogs page on my Instagram, I'm sure you'll find it. But her friends were not happy. Her friend was not happy. The one friend was not happy within the group. And so eventually the night gets cut short, even though we're all having fun, even though the girls are all cool, the one friend steps in, she gets like this big argument with us, and she says, "You know what, girls, we're just gonna leave. We're gonna go home." And so even though it's one girl saying that she wants to go home, despite all the other girls having fun, all the other girls follow because girls like to maintain a group. Is kind of what I found. So they all leave. And that's on us because we should have also been making sure that one girl was having a good time. But instead, we weren't focusing on her. We weren't really paying attention to her. We were talking to the other girls. And eventually she got mad and stopped the entire night. So that's just something that I wanted to bring up. And that's part of being likable. That's part of just paying attention to everyone. That's also part of managing your reputation. Always have a good reputation. Have fun and be the source of the fun. Now, this is like a kind of like a hack. And I think you can kind of get the idea of this just by the title. One of the best things you can do, if you're a dude that just wants to kind of go out and maybe you want girls to talk to you, but you don't want to put in the effort to talk to girls, just be having fun. And I know that sounds weird, and I know that sounds crazy, and I know that sounds probably like common sense, but most dudes, what they do, they go to a bar and they look thirsty. They look around the entire time in the corner, hoping that a girl will pass them by, hoping that a girl will give them eye contact, and that's how they try to talk to girls or approach girls. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I think the best thing you can do is if you go to a bar or club, just have fun. Like actively have fun, actively dance, actively have a good time. And I found that more often than not, girls will just join in. They'll just come to you because they want to be around the fun. I don't know if maybe I didn't put it on here. I thought I put it on here. Actually, I did put it on here at the very bottom. This is a song by Cyndi Lauper, and it's Girls Just Want to Have Fun. It's true. Girls want to have fun. So just be the facilitator of fun. Be the guy or the group of guys having fun, and then girls will just come over to you. There's a lot of stories I can tell about this, but one, I remember when I was doing this, when I was typing all this up, one that came to mind was we were in Ocean City. This is like years ago, I think in 2020. Me and some friends were in Ocean City, and there was like this one bar. Man, I can't remember what it was called. It's a pretty popular bar in Ocean City. It's only like 4 bars people go to. It wasn't Secrets. Oh, it's gonna bother me. Anyway, we were at this bar, and there weren't that many people there, but it was a decent crowd. And I remember me and my friends just wanted to go out and drink. So we went out, we just started drinking, taking shots, and just having a good time. And because we were just having a fun time, really not even trying to like talk to girls, girls started coming up to us. We had girls that even had like boyfriends or at least guys we were with coming up to us, asking us questions about who we were and what we were doing and how long we were going to be around, all that stuff. And that's just a quick example of if you just go out and have fun, you'll draw people in, you'll draw girls in. Like you don't have to be the dude that's like actively trying to hit on every single girl that you walk by. Just enjoy yourself, have fun, and that'll attract more girls. It'll attract people in general. Like I said, a lot of the stuff applies to people in general, but for the sake of this video, it'll definitely attract girls. All right, next thing. Only be around dudes that are great with women. And I say this because I found that more often than not, the dudes you're around will ruin your chances with women more than women will. If you're around dudes that are creepy, if you're around dudes that say just dumb stuff that are repulsive to women, if you're around dudes that have like, say like even just bad hygiene or whatever, any way that a guy can be bad with women, if they're around you, they are going to be the reasons why you don't end up with any girls. I've genuinely found sometimes I've had a lot of friends who are just terrible with girls, like terrible in the sense that they just say dumb stuff, terrible in the sense that they're overly aggressive when they flirt, terrible in the sense that they try to put you down. That's a big one, by the way. They'll try to put you down, I guess, to make themselves look bigger to the girl or girls. And it ultimately leads to the girls just kind of like being weirded out and they just leave. I've had so many dudes who are just bad with girls. And it always leads to you losing out too. Almost always. I've had more success going out by myself than going out with other dudes. Not always. Like sometimes it's good to go out with other guys, but the guys have to be like really about it. They have to be really on point. Otherwise, it's almost a losing game. And you're almost better off not even trying and not putting in any effort. So I have on here, I remember, man, for like 2 years, there was this one guy I used to hang out with. We'd always go out to bars and like clubs together. And he always would do this thing. Like we'd meet a group of girls and he'd always try to bring up like something negative about me. And I think he thought it was like a joke, but I feel like deep down he's trying to like alpha me. And it's like, why would you do this? There's no point in you putting me down. You could easily just like hype me up and I would hype you up. Like we could just spread positivity. Why are you putting me down? It always ended terribly. It always ended with the girls like getting weirded out and they would just leave. And I remember one time it got so bad, I was like, dude, you got to stop doing that. Like you keep doing that every time we go out. You keep talking shit about me. Like it's not even like in a funny way. It's like in a direct, like, I'm trying to think of like some of the things he would say. He would just be like, oh yeah, this guy's not nearly as cool as he looks. Or some girl would give me a compliment. He'd be like, oh, it's not that great. It's like, well, why? Why even say that? Why put me down? Like there's no benefit to it. Like trying to knock me down a few points. So that's just an example. Don't do that. Don't put your friends down. Always be around dudes who kind of understand what to do, who give you compliments, or especially around girls. Like this one idea could be a whole video in itself. Most of these ideas can be a whole video in themselves, and maybe eventually I'll make a video of each of these topics. But this is one of the most important things to keep in mind in this entire presentation. Try your best to only be around dudes that are good with women. Now, I have at the bottom here, there's a story. Well, I can't remember the name of the bar. There's some bar in Ashburn in Northern Virginia. It's like this Thai bar. And when I first moved here, like in 2017 to Northern Virginia, we go to this bar. And I remember there were these two girls that me and my friend thought were attractive. And real quick too, this is another thing. If you see a girl that you think is attractive, don't hesitate to approach. Either do it or don't do it. One or the other. Don't sit there and contemplate it. Don't try to plan it. Don't overthink it. Just go up and say something. It doesn't matter what you say. Just say something. It's better than nothing. And it's better than overthinking it. Because I definitely think girls see you looking at them and they see you planning it. And I think the longer you wait to approach, the more off-putting it is. I feel like they think it's low confidence. Just approach. So me and him saw these two girls. And he was like, oh, what should we say? What should we go say? So I just went up and talked to him because I didn't want to be in that mode where you're planning too much. Because I've been through that. I know how it is. I go up, I talk to them. They're vibing. They start dancing. They come over. And he wanted to buy them drinks. And I said to him, don't buy them drinks. Do not buy them drinks. One of my rules, I don't have this in the presentation, but one of my rules is if you meet a girl out for the very first time, if she's not like your friend or something like that, or your girlfriend, don't buy her drinks. It comes off as like needy. It's almost like saying, I need to pay for your attention. So I never buy girls drinks. Even when girls ask for drinks, my thing is if they ask for a drink, they have to earn the drink. And I have stuff on here about earning drinks, but don't buy them drinks. Long story short. We're hanging out, we're having a good time, and eventually he just does anyway. He goes and buys drinks. And it's crazy. This literally always happens. This always happens. The moment he bought them drinks, they took the drinks, they said thanks, and they walked off. That was it. And that always happens. There's so many stories where that's happened, where we've been out and we're having like a good vibe with girls. And the moment that some dude buys them a drink, they leave. Always. Don't buy girls drinks. So I bring that up because the better strategy, of course, would be to not buy them a drink. And I know it sounds so simple and so basic, but this is kind of what I mean when I say you want to be around dudes that are good with women. If he had known not to buy drinks, then the experience would have continued on much longer than it did. Another one, assume every girl is interested in you. When I was in college and when I first started like kind of getting into pickup, I would always talk myself out of if a girl was interested or not. I would always assume like, oh, maybe she's not interested. Maybe she has a boyfriend. Maybe this thing. I always find some excuse to not talk to her or to not pursue things with her. And there's been so many times where like in hindsight, I'd be like, she was into me. Or even some girls would say like, yeah, I was into you, but you didn't like follow up with it. You didn't continue with this interaction. My belief is that you're better off assuming every girl you interact with is interested in you. Because at worst, I kind of have this little chart here, and it looks like more often than not, you're going to lose. But the reality is that you can take someone who's not that interested in you and get them interested, but you're only going to do that if you assume that she's interested in the first place. Does that make sense? Like you have to assume she's interested for you to actually pursue it. And because you're the one that needs to pursue it in general, there's some girls that are more direct. Most girls are subtle. Most girls are not overt. You're the one that needs to be more overt. And because you need to be more overt, you're only going to be willing to be more overt if you assume that she's into you.